I've got one that can see.
Welcome to 3NN Podcast with your hosts with the most, Nick Tesla and Brian McFadden.
Welcome everybody to 3NN Podcast number 27. My name is Nick Tesla. His name is
Brian McFadden.
And we're here to let you know nothing is impossible. I was getting ready to say we're here to crack your mind wide open like an egg on a Saturday morning. But we're here to let you know nothing is impossible.
The impossible is impossible.
The impossible means nothing. Okay? Impossibility, possibility, the difference between possibility and impossibility is up to you.
I'm pretty sure it's impossible for me to sit here right now and make my skin turn dark blue, or sit here right now and make that refrigerator walk over to me instead of me walking to it.
Yeah, you're letting the point store way over your head, and that's okay, Brian. Hey, you know what? That's okay. We'd like to welcome everybody. Hey, I'm looking at a camera that doesn't exist there. We'd like to welcome everybody to 3NN Podcast. This is the place to open your mind.
The official podcast of Open Minds Everywhere.
Of course, exactly. Official podcast of Open Minds Everywhere. We got kind of a slow start here. What's going on with us? What's going on with me? That's because it's 4:20. For us, it's filming day, and it's 4:20. For everybody else, it's 4:22, and it's 4:20 was a few days ago. Get your shit together. Now it's 4:20 for us, so you know what? We've been enjoying 4:20 a little bit here and there. And
we hope you enjoyed yours.
Yes, we do hope everybody out there has enjoyed yours, and please support the legalization and regulation of medical marijuana and recreational use marijuana, because it's something that is very important for our grandchildren, important for our children, important for future generations. It's a cure for so many different things, for so many ailments, diseases, yada 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 yada. So
yada,
go 420,
yada,
go 420, go 420, go. Anyway, I also wanted to touch on, before we get started, I really wanted to just real quick touch on brainstorming. I want everybody out there to check out brainstorming. I don't know if you've noticed on 3NN, we've kind of fallen off the wagon on the current events and political topics a little bit. And, you know, even though we did touch on Jazzy Jade Helm a few episodes or a couple episodes ago, but
more and more still coming out about that.
Yeah, but we're not touching on that kind of stuff as much on 3NN. You might be saying to yourself, well, what's going on? What's going on with the show? And I missed the other stuff. Well, if you're missing the other stuff, check us out on Brainstorming. We got a new show. It's called Brainstorming with Brian McFadden and Nick Tesla, and it's a pretty badass show. You can check it out on the same exact YouTube channel. That's our current event show now. So please like this video and subscribe to Where We Lie to.
See now, this show is now about kind of making you think in a more outside-the-box way. Brainstorming is your political news, your monetary, economic, current events, things like that.
You know the way I like to look at this show? I think you're great at giving the description for brainstorming. I'm going to be pretty good at giving the description for this show. I'll tell you what. Is if reality is a simulation, when you're listening to this show, I want everybody out there to listen to this show from the perspective of, if reality is a simulation, then you're literally the gamee, I guess you could say. You're the person playing the simulation, sitting at whatever the simulation is being run on, whether it be a computer or something else, because it's a whole nother dimension and a whole nother reality. But you are that. You are that being. But you are that being sitting at that computer. No, it's not the holodeck, because you're watching over it and seeing it all in the little bubble that it is. We don't see constraints, you know what I'm saying? Just like a fish doesn't know its constraints until it bumps into it. We don't really see constraints. We don't realize there's something outside of this. Well, that's what I meant by the fish thing, is a fish can look at the top of the water all at once and doesn't realize there's a whole nother world out there, you know what I'm saying? A whole nother world that's completely different, where we breathe air, whereas they can't breathe air, you know what I'm saying? We're constantly attacking them. It's a whole nother story. But today is our Moon Spectacular!
For those of you that don't know, the moon is when you bend over, drop your pants, and show your ass to somebody.
There's a lot of different connotations that go with the moon. The moon is very important to our society and to our culture and our civilization, to the human species, the human race, and life on Earth. The moon is so important. Think about our tides. Think about eclipses. You think about what they meant to ancient cultures. Think about the seasons and how the moon affects that. And the moon affects a lot of things. And also the moon is not rotating. I hear people trying to tell me that the moon is rotating. I don't believe the moon is rotating. If the moon was rotating, then wouldn't we at some point...
Dark side of the moon
exactly. Wouldn't we at some point see the dark side of the moon? But then you hear people say, well, if the moon wasn't rotating, wouldn't some people at some point see the dark side of the moon? Because if it's not rotating, then it's just moving statically or in the same position around the Earth. And when you come to really think about it, and I could be completely wrong on this, but I believe the moon stays facing us.
Yes.
In every as it spins around us, it stays facing us in the exact same direction, which is creepy as fuck. Think about that. Think about like the Death Star hanging above your planet. Okay,
That's
I know you're
exactly
thinking about
what
the
I'm
Death Star.
thinking of.
Think about the Death Star hanging above your planet and the laser, the giant laser that's on the Death Star that could just annihilate entire cities at a time is constantly, it might be floating around the planet, and sometimes you don't see it, sometimes it's not around, and sometimes you do see it. Sometimes at night it's really lit up and the sun's bouncing off it and you can really see that thing. But think about the laser side that could destroy a whole civilization instantly, constantly being pointed at the people. You know? It's like, no? I don't know if I like that, but that's what our moon does. But we accept that our moon is just a chunk of Earth that got knocked off and this and that, which I guess we'll get into a little bit.
Here's a question for you that just came to mind when I was thinking of the Death Star reference. Maybe the dark side of the moon is from Return of the Jedi, the unfinished side of the Death Star still under construction.
Yeah,
where we'd actually be able to see it and know the truth, and that's why we can't see the dark side.
It's kind of interesting that you say that. It's not on the same exact line, but some people will see how I'd see it on the same line. Is that David Icke has actually put this idea out there, and when you think of David Icke and you think of lizards and his lizard theory and all that, it's like a little bit weird. But David Icke has actually put this theory out there that Saturn is transmitting to Earth. And the moon is transmitting to Saturn.
Oh.
Or no, sorry. That the moon is picking up transmissions from Saturn, from the rings of Saturn, believe it or not. The moon, and there's also two different storms on both polar caps of Saturn, and one looks like an eye constantly. It's kind of weird, the all-seeing eye.
Oh.
But the moon is actually a receiver/amplifier of those signals coming from Saturn. And if you ever look up sounds from Saturn, if you just look up online sounds from Saturn, you'll find some really stuff. And then some really crazy sounds. And that's transmissions coming from Saturn. Like, wow. Also, if you think about, I believe it is the Black Knight satellite. I believe that's what it's called, is the Black Knight satellite. There's a satellite basically that hovers around Earth, hovers and rotates Earth or whatever, and it's kind of like as close as man-made satellites are, maybe even a little bit closer, right? And
so this one is not man-made that we're talking about?
No, nobody knows what this one is.
Okay.
Nobody, they literally have no idea what it is, what it's made of. They're afraid to touch it, you know what I'm saying? It's alien. For all they know, it's alien, but it's literally, it looks like a black rock in the sky, but it's obviously not a rock. It's obviously some sort of either ship or
that's
like
no
alien
moon.
life form. It could
It's
be
a
Cthulhu.
space station.
That could be Cthulhu, dude. That could be Cthulhu curled up, and Cthulhu literally unravels out of that little stone that looks like it's probably the size of like 10 school buses wrapped together. Cthulhu comes unraveling out of that. Or like we'll get into is, and we won't get into this, so maybe it's good that I touch on it now, is one of these theories that I heard David Icke talking about. Another one is that the moon is an egg. And when I heard that, my immediate thought was, when you think about Cthulhu, is Cthulhu comes from the sky. And the moon is close enough that if the moon is an actual egg, and Cthulhu is inside and decides to wake up or decides to hatch and breaks out the moon, maybe that's Cthulhu's egg jail or egg prison. But if he decides to come out, we're fucked, because he's so close, he's coming straight for Earth. True. You know what I'm saying? I don't know, bro.
That's a very interesting concept.
Let's get started on on the moon. Those are some crazy things that I came across looking into moon things and artificial moon theory and all that this week. But I wanted to start off, so everybody knows that in Nazi Germany and the Nazis themselves, the Thule Society was interested in a lot of paranormal and a lot of crazy things that you wouldn't think are really possible. I guess you could call them magic with a K on the end, right? That's a different kind of magic if you look it up, like maybe black magic. Some people might know it as that, right? The Thule Society and the Nazis looked into all this and were interested in time travel, interested in alien life, interested in UFOs, interested in underground races, hollow earth theory. They were interested in almost any like conspiracy, like off the wall crazy conspiracy you could think of, and they followed up on a lot of them, right? So when you know that, and you know that they were into a lot of really crazy stuff and were actually building UFOs and stuff like that, right? And there's rumors, I guess, and conspiracies out there that Hitler did not die. He actually contacted aliens and went and lived on Mars or lived on the moon or something like that.
No, I didn't.
And then came back and stayed in Antarctica.
Yeah, I heard.
Well, I've heard he went to Antarctica.
The one I heard is he went to Antarctica.
This is what I just heard in one of these videos.
He went to Antarctica and discovered the entrance to Hollow Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this one I heard he went to Mars or something, then came back and built an underground base in Antarctica and has been building UFOs and things like that to spy on the public and to try and control the world, and been controlling the world from that underground thing, right? Well, when you have all that in mind, this isn't a Hitler episode, this is a moon episode, but you have all that in mind, then you think about Project Paperclip and the many different projects. Lloyd Braun, was that his name? Not Lloyd Braun, that's a guy from Seinfeld. The guy who gave us our rockets, who brought us our whole the father of the United States rocketry program.
Shit. Off the top of my head, I don't remember his name.
I think it was either Saturn rocket or... Saturn rocket's where we're launching now. That was the Jupiter rocket. I don't know. Maybe it was the V2 rocket. You could be right, Brian. Sorry, I'm eating a cookie.
The Apollo missions, the V2 rocket.
Chewy cookies are the best on 420. Alright, so, right... The origins, if you look into the origins of NASA, the origins of NASA really, literally, directly came from the Nazi space program. Like a giant chunk, like a good 90%.
Most of their scientists got out.
90% of NASA, the founding of NASA, was with Nazi scientists and Nazi space program employees, right? So, when you think about that, then start to think about all of these conspiracies and how NASA plays them down, okay? And how you know what NASA's origins are and the type of things that those scientists were forced to look into. You know what I'm saying?
True.
So, there's some pretty crazy stuff. But, I guess what we're going to lead to on that same exact note is... Did they discover something about her? I came across so many different things. I came across that Earth is literally just a hologram in a simulation, and nobody goes outside of Earth's atmosphere. You know what I'm saying? Nobody leaves like the upper atmosphere or whatever. Because I think we talked about this before. How you can get a camera and put it on a balloon and on a weather balloon and actually see the atmosphere and the curvature of the Earth and all that, and almost be in space. Like almost have that camera in space. It's pretty crazy. But I've seen some things saying that like the moon, our whole solar system, the whole galaxy universe around us, that's all just an illusion, just a hologram being projected around us. But we're actually the real thing, or we're somewhat of a real thing. So when you think about all the crazy stuff that the Nazis looked into, and that was the start of NASA. NASA was a lot of Nazi scientists, right? And you correlate that to the moon landings, and were the moon landings fake?
I saw very compelling evidence that at least the famous video of Neil Armstrong walking on the moon, one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind, was filmed by Stanley Kubrick on a soundstage in Hollywood.
Yeah, and honestly,
it's pretty convincing.
I'm not a believer of that, Brian. I'm not a full believer that we didn't go to the moon and we didn't film anything at the moon. I almost believe that was filmed and that your story is correct, but that was not filmed as a replacement or as a, hey, instead of going to the moon, it would be cheaper to film this on a soundstage.
No, I think we
and
went
politically
there and
it'll
found
help us.
something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's ever seen Apollo 18, like Apollo 18 is a crazy movie. Have you ever seen Apollo 18?
I keep seeing it pop up on Netflix, and I have not gotten around to watching it.
Oh, Brian, you've got to check out Apollo 18. Apollo 18 is a kind of a crazy movie and makes you really think about the moon, and it's like...
I watched one, it's kind of, I guess, similar, where we go to a different planet that I don't even remember what the hell planet it is, but they discover some freaky shit there.
Yeah. Well, I honestly think, and there's some compelling evidence, there's some video online that basically shows a lot of different really compelling evidence. Like, you'll see a guy being, like, literally pulled up. Like, there's no way that if he is wearing a suit and his backpack contains any weight whatsoever, which he obviously had a big giant backpack on, or giant, like, if you remember their spacesuits that they did the moonwalks with,
Yeah,
their
had
backpacks
the air
were giant.
conditioner and heater and everything
right?
built in.
Well,
fucking
there was a guy,
system.
there's this one video, and they have compelling evidence. That's why you got to look at it like you really got to think something about it. You got to think there's something that actually might have happened, or there's something to that conspiracy, because there's this guy's on the ground, and he's trying to get up. You see him, like, pushing himself off the ground, pushing himself with his arms off the ground, trying to, like, get himself back upright, right? And he's having no luck whatsoever. He's pushing himself 6 inches up at a time.
I recall back in school we were taught the moon is 1/6 the gravity of Earth, so it should be easier for him to get up.
Oh, yeah, it should. But you can tell, it seems like that there's low gravity, right? It seems like he's, when you see the guys walking around him trying to help him, it seems like they're in low gravity. You come to find out that that's actually very slight slow motion that they put on everybody and had them do like a bouncing step and this and that. And when you speed it up and put it at regular speed, you can see the guys actually doing the bouncing step. It's pretty plain as day that they're doing it. But this video showed this guy, literally he couldn't get up. He's pushing himself up 6 inches at a time and falling back down to the moon soil, right? And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he pushes himself up. He gets about 6 inches up, just slightly starts to fall forward again, and all of a sudden it looks like he almost looks like a string or something attached to his backpack, lifted up his backpack from the top of it and stood him up. And then, like, stood him up and went taut, stood him up, and then, like, loose again so that he can move around and do all that. And, like, it was removed, or it was just, like, what is it? High-tension fishing wire, you know what I'm saying? Or high-poundage, high-weight fishing wire, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Piano string, maybe.
I don't know. Well, nanostring, you got to think with it, when they did this, like, moon landings were in the 60s, right? So, yeah. 64? 67? I don't fucking know. I wish I was lived in the 60s.
69, I believe.
I wish I knew those dates, man. Really
69. 1969.
Wow. All right, so, I don't know. The moon landings could be faked. And if so, the real thing is, okay, there's sufficient evidence to really question whether or not it was real or not. There's plenty of NASA people and plenty of smart people out there who say, we went to the moon. Like, really, we went to the moon. Those are the real videos. You know what I'm saying? Like, why did the original videos get lost? I don't know. Who knows? But we went to the moon. Well, there's a lot of people who say that, and I can understand why they say that, because when you really look at the system and you believe that the system's not, like, corrupt, and you want to ignore that the Nazi beginnings and origins of NASA and all that, when you want to ignore all that, you can very easily be like, what reason do they have to lie?
Yeah.
Really? Like, what reason do they have to lie? What reason, like, well, the space race, we were trying to be the first to get to the moon and have a man on the moon, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but no, like Neil deGrasse Tyson said it on something on, I think, Larry Wilmore's show the other night. Like, if we fake going to the moon, then what about all those guys that were there and, like, filled up the tanks to go to the moon with enough fuel to get to the moon and get back? You know, we're filling all the fuel tanks with enough fuel to get to the moon and get back, and watched it physically go up and communicated. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it would have to be one massive conspiracy, and by now you'd have a lot more people coming out saying, I was a part of this conspiracy, and it was all just a conspiracy. It was all hoax. You know what I'm saying? It was all to do this, or all for political gain, or this or that. I really believe they went to the moon, they tried the moon, and that was the plan, was to just get footage of them going to the moon. But as soon as they landed on the moon, hence why we haven't gone back. Why are we talking about going to Mars, and we haven't even colonized the moon yet? We haven't even been back to the moon yet. What's going on there, Brian? Maybe we'll touch on in a second is how Russia went to the moon, and supposedly, I think they deny it now, but at first they didn't deny it. Russia supposedly went to the moon and found a giant, city-sized spaceship, crashed spaceship or landed spaceship on the moon, on the dark side of the moon, found a giant city-sized crashed spaceship on the moon, and entered into it and found 2 alien pilots, and one of them was called the Mona Lisa pilot, the Mona Lisa alien. If you type in moon Mona Lisa alien, some crazy stuff will come up. And you don't type it in now, because I don't want to really get too far into that. There's some stuff I had wanted to pull up. Did you have anything pulled up on this, Brian, or not?
Just the links that you sent me.
You have those pulled up, though?
I do.
Oh, you're the man. All right. Can you tell me about... Oh, Brian. Duh. Brian, I'm such a dummy sometimes. I'm so sorry.
I'm looking at this Mona Lisa pilot.
Isn't that... That's not... If it's the picture of the Mona Lisa, the actual Mona Lisa painting with the bones on her face, that's not what she looks like, obviously. It didn't look like Mona Lisa. But the face actually, it was a face, and it had those bones on it like that. Oh. Like those bones are like built into the face as almost like a structure and shit.
That would kind of creep me out.
Wouldn't that creep you out? And then that large of a spaceship? Creepy. And it's like, I don't know, Brian. So, I'm going to get some stuff pulled up for us. If you want to, if you want to, Brian.
If I want to.
If you want to read something about the Mona Lisa alien, if you have that pulled up.
I just X'd out of that one.
Oh, all right. What do you have pulled up? Give me a couple of the ones you have pulled up, other than the moon is a giant spaceship.
10 reasons the moon landings could be a hoax.
Okay, here we go, Brian. Because we're now going to move on to go to the 11 reasons that the moon landings are not a hoax. I think I sent you one about that.
Huffington Post.
Was it
Apollo
Huffington?
11 fake proof.
I think that might be it. Or is that proof that Apollo... I was like...
Apollo moon landings were not fake.
Yes, proof that Apollo moon landings... If you can just run through them, each one of them. I don't even... Read them 1 through 11, or is it really long? Is each one like a paragraph response?
I'm loading it right now.
Okay.
I'm on a very slow...
Yeah.
It's like got a little short title for each one, and then a really short write-up under it.
How short is the write-up?
Like number 1,
sentences?
these 2 pictures match. In 2008, the Japanese Selene probe obtained photographic evidence of the moon landings by comparing the image on the left from Apollo 15, taken in 1971, to its own 3D terrain camera image. They were exactly the same.
What? Alright, so that was number 1?
Yeah.
Alright, I'll read number 2, then you'll read number 3, and we're just going to run through them, and then we'll see what we think about after we're done reading them. Because this involves a lot of pictures, so if anybody wants to check this out, just type into Google 11 proofs. Proofs. I know it doesn't sound vernacularly correct.
But it is.
But it is, apparently. 11 proofs that the Apollo moon landings were not fake. And it's from Huffington Post. Just click that link and you'll see the pictures we're talking about. And we'll also have this link on the facebook.com/3NM podcast. We'll have a link to this article, so you don't really have to search for it. Huh?
Alrighty.
Oh, I thought you said already. Yeah, it's there already, Brian. It's mind control. All right. This picture is often used to claim that there were studio lights visible in the upper left corner. They were not studio lights, as explained by Roger Launius of the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. Okay, let's take a step back. NASA's going to release a picture showing studio lights. Hello, the odd lights in the picture are simply lens flares, he told National Geographic sensibly. And yes, they are lens flares. All right, number 3, Brian?
We can see it. I've got one that can see.
I've got one that can see. See.
It is often claimed that if the lunar landings were real, we could see them from the Earth or the Hubble telescope. Nope. Fact is, they're just too far away. On the other hand, we can see the lunar landing sites thanks to the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. Here's the picture. You're welcome. So, this picture is apparently showing the site of where Apollo 11 landed.
Hence, we landed. We probably definitely landed, but what did we find when we were there? What went on when we were there? I also saw some crazy-ass videos, and I really think they were CG and just made up. But, of, like, UFOs and balls of, like, not energy, almost like basketball-sized UFOs floating around.
Yeah, I've seen those.
Like, that's, like, some crazy shit. I really think it was CG, but if there's any of those that are real, that would have really fucked our heads up. Have they just been floating around us and we don't know what they're doing or why they're there, and they're like inspecting us and checking us out. And what if they fucked with us? Like, we would be like, nope, we're gone. Fuck that. You know?
Yeah.
Or they crashed it, like fucked up one of our things. You know, one of our pods getting back. I don't know.
Or the space station, even.
Did we have the space station back then, though?
Back then we didn't, but...
Okay. Other spacecraft have seen it. Okay, the lunar landings have been spotted by China's Change 2 lunar probe, the Indian Chandrayaan-1 probe, and various other independent non-NASA funded space agencies. Like we said, it's there. Number 5, Brian.
Number 5, this thing, and it shows a picture of a thing, is a glass spheroidal about 0.6 millimeter in diameter, produced by a meteorite impact into lunar soil. We found particles of fresh glass in moon rocks that were produced by explosive volcanic activity and by meteorite impacts over 3 billion years ago. Presence of water on Earth rapidly breaks down such volcanic glass. In only a few million years, these rocks must have come from the moon.
Or what if we stole some of the moon's, I guess you could say property, even though it's just to us, so we just look at it as rocks and dirt, but maybe that's actually like life force for the moon, or those, that's like what do you call it, feed on? That's
Possibly.
what the UFOs feed on, or this or that, and we stole some of that shit and they're pissed. Because, yeah, they're right. There are moon rocks and shit that came from the moon that could not have been formed on Earth. Even though they are made of the same basic compounds as things you'll find on Earth, they were not able to be formed on Earth because of yada yada blah 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 that it just said in number 5. Number 6, this looks like a moon rock. The lunar rocks brought back by NASA from the moon are identical in all vital and important ways to those found elsewhere on Earth. Okay.
7.
7.
The flag was flapping, and that makes sense. It does? Let's see.
Go ahead.
One claim made by Apollo 11 conspiracy theorists is that the American flag was seen flapping on the surface of the moon. I agree with that. Fact is, that's totally expected. No, there isn't any wind on the moon, but there is momentum and inertia. The fabric of the flag was moved around while being set in position and naturally waved as it was being set up. It also has a pole along the top to keep it in position, otherwise it would hang straight down.
Yeah. I don't know. I've heard some pretty good theories. I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson give a really shitty theory, to be honest, the other night on Larry Wilmore of why the flag was waving. You know, if there's no air on the moon or whatever, then it shouldn't
I was
wave.
kind of under the impression it shouldn't be moving if there's no atmosphere.
Yeah, but without atmosphere, there's actually no wind resistance. And atmosphere does not...
There's no wind.
No, but atmosphere does not... what do you call it? There's no wind, but think about the laws of physics. When an object in motion will stay in motion unless acted on by another force. Without atmosphere to slow it down, when they put that flag up, they pulled it up and held it with their hand to try and straighten it out. Held it with their hand right there. When they let go, that action of letting go created a little bit of a drift in it. And then once the resistance of the actual fabric itself, nothing else, became too much, it came back the other way and drifted the other way. There was no atmosphere that slowed down. That was Neil deGrasse Tyson explanation for it, and that kind of made sense. I've heard other people give other explanations that don't really add up for me, and that one kind of added up, you know. So maybe I'm just stupid. I don't know, Brian. Number 8, who took the pictures? Who took the pictures? Let's say one of the frequent claims is that the Apollo 11 mission included images of the 2 astronauts with no obvious cameraman. As National Geographic explains here, that was because there were cameras in the chests of both astronaut suits and on the lander. So the lander actually took these pictures. And that makes sense. And that, I honestly look at that one picture. It's number 8 on this article, if anybody's taking a look at it with us. I actually look at this picture right here, and that, to be completely honest with you, I can see a lot of people saying, what are you talking about? Oh, that could be in a desert. That could be anywhere. I look at that picture being an actual picture of 2 astronauts on the moon. Because there's no space shot. There's nothing in the distance, you know what I'm saying? There's nothing blurred out. It's almost a close-up shot, and there's only ground, and you just see the sand. There could be something just out of frame, but it's not in there, so we don't see anything. Whereas the rest of them had to be doctored. How many of the other pictures had to be doctored? Oh, why are there no stars in the background? Because they take all the stars out for effect.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
One of the claims made to support the theory is there are no stars pictured on the surface of the moon, but this is because the moon is very bright, reflecting a lot of the sun's light. There are no stars because the cameras couldn't pick them up.
And I see a lot of people saying that that's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. But in all reality, I've heard that they removed the stars and that NASA has admitted that they removed the stars. I haven't seen anything from NASA saying that they admit that they do that. But I've heard that they removed the stars for effect so that, what do you call it? So you can see the ground and all that better. Oh. You know what I'm saying? But they do remove the backgrounds. That's been proven by plenty of people. If you just look into moon conspiracies a little bit, you'll find that it's obvious. Like obvious Photoshop work, especially from back in the early 90s, like before Photoshop was really, really relevant. Yeah. Where like everybody had Photoshop. They still had Photoshop, but it was a lot more obvious with closer examination that they were blacking out the backgrounds. And why were they blacking out the backgrounds? What's on the moon that they need to black out the backgrounds, you know? And there's a lot of awesome videos you can find online of shit literally taking off from the moon, leaving the moon. It wasn't in front of the moon. It wasn't behind the moon. Well, maybe it was behind the moon. But you literally see this shit, like, 1 second, it's not there. It's not like it's crossing in front or behind the moon. That's what I'm trying to say. Is it's coming off the moon, you know, or out of the moon, you know? So, hence, which leads me to number 10. The restored images are amazing. To celebrate the 40th anniversary of the landings, NASA put together a series of remastered images and footage of the Apollo 11 mission. The images are stunning and blow away the age-old criticism that the Apollo footage was somehow intentionally bad to obscure the fact it was filmed in a studio or whatever. Which I have not seen the 40th anniversary video. And I don't know when that came out. But think about it, was probably released 40th anniversary if it was in 1969, 79, 89, 99, 2009, right? 2009, video editing and shit like that, it's at its peak. And if you're NASA, you got a fucking nice budget. You know, people try and say, oh, NASA doesn't get its budget, or NASA doesn't get a good budget, or NASA's got cutbacks and this and that. NASA, I guarantee you, when it comes to something like their photo editing department, in at least the past 20 years has really made leaps and bounds above what people believe is possible, because they got some shit they really got to cover up, and that's not some shit anybody wants the public finding out. At least not now. Yeah. You know? Not by NASA. NASA's not going to release that shit. So, Brian, I guess last but not least,
this expression, it's Neil Armstrong's face back inside the lunar lander, I guess, right after walking on the moon. This is the face of a man who has just walked on the moon, not the face of a man who has just faked it.
I look at that face and I see a face of a man who may have possibly just faked it and feels like he's pulling off one of the biggest dupes on America. But you also look at this man's eyes, and okay, yeah, he could be very sleep deprived or something like that.
Forgive me for being vulgar, but he has the look of someone who's getting a blowjob just outside of the frame of the camera while the picture's being taken.
This may be the cinematographer or director or screenwriter in me, right? The screenplay. I'm writing a screenplay, Brian.
Are you?
No. I look at this picture and I see some shit, some Apollo 18 type shit just happened to him. He was just bawling his eyes out, crying after getting back onto the lander, the lunar lander, where the only place he feels safe, right? Just bawling his eyes out, crying. The person that he got back in, I can't remember who it was, Buzz Aldrin or somebody, right? The person he got back into the lander with realized he was freaking out, realized that if he's freaking out, if they both ended up freaking out, then it could be bad news, and they might end up getting trapped, or they might end up start making mistakes that they can't make, and this and that, right?
Yeah.
And he made the decision to say, I need to make this a lighthearted moment. Even though this is like he's terrified out of his mind, I need to make this a lighthearted moment. And he got him to stop crying and got him to chill out a little bit, and then started cracking jokes. And one of the jokes, Neil Armstrong looked over and was just like, yeah, can't wait to get back home. That'd be great. You know what I'm saying? And that's his little smirk. But he was just crying his eyes out and like terrified at some shit he just saw. And everybody else looks at that as like, oh my God, he was the first man to walk on the moon. And it's like, can you believe this? You know what I'm saying? Can you believe that? Like, look at this picture. This guy is so happy because he was just the first man. No, that just shows that a picture captures literally an instance of a moment. It barely captures anything.
Exactly.
A picture could
For all we know, that could have been...
It's like the selfie pictures. Remember we were looking at the selfie pictures?
Could be taken before he even walked on the moon. Oh my God, I'm in space.
All right, Brian. Today's episode of 3NN is being brought to you by Moon Boots. Hey, check out Moon Boots. They're not just for winter anymore. Wear them in the summertime. Wear them in the pool. Wear them on a plane. Wear them in the basement. Wear them in your attic. Wear them wherever you feel like you need to. Wear them to bed. Wear them in the shower. Wear them wherever you need to wear them. You know? Wear them where more people will see you wearing them. Because they're a great thing to wear. Moon Boots. Get yourself a pair today. And this has no affiliation with Napoleon Dynamite, the movie. Brian, I guess we're gonna start to wrap it up. But there was something that I know it feels like it was a short show, but we do like 2-hour shows all the time. It's only supposed to be an hour show. What's wrong with us? And since it's 4:20, I think we both have things that we need to get to. Sorry for cutting this short for anybody that loves our long shows, but some people do. You never know, Brian. But there's one thing I really wanted to touch on. All right, I'm going to tell you a little story, Brian.
Okay.
And put things in context for you. I was a young man once. I wore a younger man's clothes. I thought I had style. I thought I had grace. But then I looked in the mirror and saw an ugly face. So I realized fashion could not do anything for me. So I got on my computer and myself became happy. I had high-speed internet, Brian. All right, now I had high-speed internet, which meant I was downloading tens of thousands of songs off of Napster and yada yada. All right, I wasn't on to the keen idea of downloading free software and things like that. Like that's when it comes down to it, really, free software downloaded on the internet, it can be a great thing, but when you're somebody who likes to hoard things, like somebody who used to download tens of thousands of hundreds, or would have like literally 100,000 songs on Napster, you run out of space on your computers really quick. And then you get more space. You get computers with more space or more hard drive space or something like that, right? And then you fill up that fucking hard drive. And then you start to realize, I'm downloading all this shit and I'm never even going to play it. I'm spending all my time looking for new shit, thinking I'm going to get to all that shit one day. It's going to be so great. And then you realize you got a giant pile of all this shit you wanted to play and all this shit you wanted to fucking have. And
that's probably
you don't
slowing
even
down
know
your
where to
computer
start
in the process.
Also, definitely slowing down your computer, but you don't know where to start. So it's like, I don't know. But back in the day, I was that guy who had 10,000 songs on Facebook, on Napster downloaded. Yeah, I'm on Facebook. Right? I was that guy. I was always on the computer looking up something every night. I was looking up just, I don't want to say crazy stuff, you know. I think we had AOL, but AOL high speed, you know, it was pretty nice. Comcast. That was before you could get Comcast internet itself. Well, I guess, you could get Comcast internet yourself, but you still felt like you needed the AOL to access the internet. Even though you didn't. You could just hook it up yourself or have them hook it up for you, no problem. But I would look up crazy stuff all the time, you know, not crazy stuff. Like now, the stuff I look up now is a million times crazier than stuff I used to look up. But one day, somehow, some way, Brian, I came across something.
Uh-oh.
And from that day forward, all right, I was about maybe a 12-year-old kid, 13 at the oldest, okay? Came across a site or a page, and I printed it out. At the time, I had a printer, and we used to get ink like once a month. Like, I would just print shit all the time, and we would get paper and ink once a month. So I was like printing this out and had it for a long time, and constantly would go back and read it. Just like I have something on Hollow Earth that I printed out like 10 years ago, and I still have, because I like to pull it out and read it sometimes, because if it gets removed from the internet, it's still interesting to be able to read. And it's like I got to remember to start doing that with websites. If anybody out there likes doing that themselves, then they find, well, oh man, I don't like bookmarking it because what if it goes away or this or that. Get Chrome, use Chrome, as your web browser, and if you go to any website and you go to print and you don't actually have a printer hooked up to your computer, it'll automatically save it to a PDF, go into save to PDF mode, and save that web page into a PDF that you can read later and always have a copy of that web page. Yeah, now if it's like if there's 5 pages, you got to go down to the bottom. It says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're gonna have to go to 1, print that page. 2, print that page. 3, print that page. It kind of sucks and it's kind of time consuming, but if you really want to keep that information and you like that information and you don't want to lose it and you don't want to just bookmark it, that's a good idea of something to do. But I'm 12 years old, right? I'm a little chap, I got my PlayStation 1. I love playing it. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I got Grand Theft Auto 1 on the computer. I love playing it. That was something I downloaded. That wasn't something that I got from anything. That was something I downloaded off the internet, and it was the Grand Theft Auto 1 demo. And I would play the demo just over and over and over and over because it was completely open. It was just timed. It was timed for I think you got a half an hour or 25 minutes or something, but you could do as much as you wanted and just go on rampages and this and that. You could still get half the guns and steal anybody's car, and it was the first Grand Theft Auto. I was I've never played a game like this. This is amazing. So I'm this little chap. I come across, is the moon an ancient spaceship? I'm like, what? It's probably 11 o'clock, a summer night, you know what I'm saying? If I'm 12, 13, I'm probably getting ready to go into 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
Maybe even 9th grade, I don't know. All right. So I come across this thing. It says, is the moon the creation of intelligence? But the original thing that it said is the moon an ancient spaceship. All right. I read this when I was a kid, and it literally cracked my mind wide open. And from that point, I looked at everything different. It made me question a lot of different things and realize, oh my goodness, everything, even when scientists and we're taught something in school, and this is how it is. That's not how it is. That's just what everybody's kind of agreed on, even though nobody's really got it figured out. That's what everybody agreed on because they needed to tell everybody, give everybody an answer. Even though it's not even a real answer, it's just everybody's guess that they all agreed they're going to start telling people as the answer until something better comes along. And I was like, holy shit, how much other stuff did they do that with? And that really opened up my mind. And it didn't start my journey, but it literally planted the seed. From this moment, this planted the seed in my brain to really start questioning things a little bit more. Authority and the knowledge system that we have set up in this world, it leads you astray more often than you'd like to think, or that we'd like to think.
It has a few sharp curves in it, and if you don't know those curves are coming, you'll keep going straight, not realizing you're making a curve.
Yeah, pretty much, B-Rye. Pretty much. All right. So I'm going to read this, then we're going to wrap it up, and
Nick's going to read this.
This is going to really mess up some people's heads. And if you have anything to say or any questions or anything like that,
well,
Brian,
we always
please.
say we're going to crack your head wide open like
an egg on a Saturday morning. Yeah, even though that's not the...
That's like your... I guess that could be... What's the word I'm looking for? The disclaimer, the warning of...
Nothing is eggs possible. Maybe that's just a little too cheesy.
That's very cheesy.
All right, because the new one's nothing is impossible. Okay. Is the moon the creation of intelligence? Now, if anybody wanted to find this, you could literally just type into Google, moon, is the moon a spaceship? Or is the moon an ancient spaceship or an alien spaceship?
This is from the eminent Soviet journal Sputnik.
Yes, but it's hosted on, or this information is on the website, theforbiddenknowledge.com/hardtruth/moon_spaceship.htm. Now, everybody, hear me out. This is by Mikhail Vasin and Alexander Sherbakov, and they were scientists from Russia, and they released this theory in the 1970s. This came out in the 70s, before there was even really a consensus on what exactly the moon was or where it came from. We thought it was natural, but we weren't exactly sure. So, yeah, now you're doing that, Brian. Give me 1 second. I apologize.
Nick needs a second, ladies and gentlemen. What we're going to talk about here is the moon, the creation of intelligence.
Technical differences?
We're experimenting technical differences.
We are so done with technical differences.
Or technological differences.
Okay. Are you ready? Although people long ago began to wonder whether the canals on Mars were the creation of cosmic engineers, for some odd reason it has not occurred to look with the same eyes upon the peculiarities of the lunar landscape much closer at hand. And all the arguments about the possibilities of intelligent life existing on other celestial bodies have been confined to the idea that other civilizations must necessarily live on the surface of a planet, and that the interior as a habitat is out of the question. Abandoning the traditional paths of common sense, we have plunged into what may at first sight seem to be unbridled and irresponsible fantasy. But the more minutely we go into all the information gathered by man about the moon, the more we are convinced that there is not a single fact to rule out our supposition. Not only that, but many things so far considered to be lunar enigmas are unexplainable in the light of this new hypothesis. An artificial Sputnik of the Earth, and if anybody doesn't know what a Sputnik is, that's another name for a satellite. The origin of the moon is one of the most complicated problems of cosmogony. So far, there have been basically 3 hypotheses under discussion. Hypothesis 1, the moon was once a part of the Earth and broke away from it. This has now been refuted by the evidence. Like I said, there would need to be 2 bangs or two collisions, which was not theoretically possible.
True.
Hypothesis number 2, the moon was formed independently from the same cloud of dust and gas. All right, wow, the whole house is falling down around us.
It's a windy day, ladies and gentlemen.
I said house. It's our studio, not a house. All right, the moon was formed independently from the same cloud of dust and gas as the Earth and immediately became the Earth's natural satellite. But then why is there such a big difference between the specific gravity of the moon, 3.33 grams per cubic centimeter, and that of the Earth, 5.5 grams? Furthermore, according to the latest information analysis of samples brought back by the U.S. Apollo astronauts, lunar rock is not of the same composition as the Earth's. Hypothesis number 3. The moon came into being separately, and moreover, far from the Earth, perhaps even outside the solar system. This would mean that the moon would not have to be fashioned from the same clay as our own planet. Sailing through the universe, the moon came into Earth's proximity, and by a complex interplay of forces of gravity, was brought within a geocentric orbit very close to circular. But a catch of this kind is virtually impossible. In fact, scientists studying the origin of the universe today have no acceptable theory to explain how the Earth-Moon system came into being. Our hypothesis, these Russian scientists, guys, the moon is an artificial Earth satellite put into orbit around the Earth by some intelligent beings unknown to ourselves. We refuse to engage in speculation about who exactly staged this unique experiment, which only a highly developed civilization was capable of. Now, if you think of things in our frame of being, in our mindset, you think about building something the size of the moon, it's like, that's not possible. It's like, within our scale of things and our technological ability, not really possible. You're right. Yeah. But in a whole nother civilization, a whole nother society, a 1,000 times more technologically advanced than us, that's come on, dude, that's a walk in the park. All right. A Noah's Ark? If you are going to launch an artificial Sputnik, then it is advisable to make it hollow. At the same time, it would be naive to imagine that anyone capable of such a tremendous space project would be satisfied simply with some kind of giant empty trunk hurled into a near-Earth trajectory. It is more likely that what we have here is a very ancient spaceship, the interior of which was filled with fuel for the engines, materials and appliances for repair work, navigation, instruments, observation equipment, and all manner of machinery. In other words, everything necessary to enable this caravel of the universe to serve as a kind of Noah's Ark of intelligence, perhaps even as the home of a whole civilization envisaging a prolonged thousands of millions of years existence and long wanderings through space, thousands of millions of miles. Naturally, the hull of such a spaceship must be super tough in order to stand up to the blows of meteorites and sharp fluctuations between extreme heat and extreme cold. Probably the shell is a double-layered affair. The basis is a dense armoring of about 20 miles in thickness, and outside it some kind of more loosely packed covering, a thinner layer averaging about 3 miles. In certain areas where the lunar seas and craters are, the upper layer is quite thin, in some cases non-existent. Since the moon's diameter is 2,162 miles, then looked at from our point of view, it is a thin-walled sphere, and understandably not an empty one. There could be all kinds of materials and equipment on its inner surface, but the greatest proportion of the lunar mass is concentrated in the central part of the sphere, in its core, which has a diameter of 2,062 miles. Thus, the distance between the kernel and the shell of this nut is in the region of 30 miles. This space was doubtless filled with gases required for breathing and for technological and other purposes. With such an internal structure, the moon could have an average specific gravity of 3.3 grams per cubic centimeter, which differs considerably from that of our Earth, 5.5 grams per cubic centimeter. A battleship they couldn't torpedo?
Oh, the Death Star? Is it the Death Star? Could it be the Death Star?
Exactly. And also, while we're saying all this, think about Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Okay? And also that Stanley Kubrick was rumored to have been the the director of the fake moon landings. And didn't his wife also come out and say that he was...
Yes, his wife...
On her deathbed?
The widow.
Was it her deathbed confession or no?
Was his deathbed confession.
Oh, she said that was his deathbed confession to her. Okay. That's crazy. So
Yes.
think about all that. Oh, and then think of this name, okay? A Soviet physicist and all his work he's done since 1937. Okay. A battleship they couldn't torpedo. The most numerous and interesting of the formations on the lunar surface are the craters. In diameter, they vary considerably. Some are less than a yard across, while others are more than 120 miles. The biggest has a diameter of 148 miles. How does the moon come to be so pockmarked? There are two hypotheses, volcanic and meteoric. Most scientists vote for the latter. Kirill Stanyukovic.
Could be missiles.
Listen to this name. Kirill Stanyukovic, a Soviet scientist. Now think of Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Stanyukovic. Isn't that funny? A Soviet physicist has written a whole series of works since 1937 in which he expounds the idea that the craters are the result of bombardment of the moon for millions of years. And he really means bombardment for even the smallest celestial body when it is involved in one of these fastest head-on collisions so common in the cosmos, behaves itself like a warhead charged with dynamite, or even an atomic warhead at times. Instant combustion takes place on impact, turning it into a dense cloud of incandescent gas, into plasma, and there's a very definite explosion. According to Professor Stanykovic, a missile of a sizable character, say 6 miles in diameter, must, on collision with the moon, penetrate to a depth equal to 4 or 5 times its own diameter, 24 to 30 miles. The surprising thing is that however big the meteorites may have been which have fallen on the moon, some have been more than 60 miles in diameter, and however fast they must have been traveling, in some cases the combined speed was as much as 38 miles per second, the craters they have left behind are for some odd reason all about the same depth. 1.2 to 2 miles, although they vary tremendously in diameter.
I'm telling you, missiles.
But even missiles would detonate. Like if it was going bigger and bigger, they would detonate bigger and bigger holes, I would think, or the holes would go deeper and deeper, not just only go to 2 miles and no further.
Well, think how old those craters might be. Maybe the previous civilization who launched that attack.
And who's firing them damn missiles, Brian?
I would say probably the civilization before ours.
Attacking it? Oh,
Maybe.
I like your thoughts. Okay, Brian. See,
I'm thinking outside the box here.
Oh, you're thinking a little more than outside the box. I like it.
I'm thinking outside the planet.
All right, take that 148-mile diameter crater. In area, it outdoes Hiroshima hundreds of times over. What a powerful explosion it must have been to send millions of tons of lunar rock fountaining over tens of miles. On the face of it, one would expect to find a very deep crater here, but nothing of the sort. There is 3 miles at the most between top and bottom levels, and 1/3 of that is accounted for by the wall of rock thrown up around the crater like a toothed crown. For such a big hole, it is too shallow. Furthermore, the bottom of the crater is convex, following the curve of the lunar surface. If you were to stand in the middle of the crater, you would not even be able to see the soaring edge. It would be beyond the horizon. A hollow that is more like a hill is a rather strange affair, perhaps. A hollow that is more like a hill. Oh, it's supposed to be hollowed out, and it's more like a hill. Exactly. That's right. That's some weird shit. All right. For such a big hole, it is too shallow. Furthermore, the bottom of the crater is convex. Didn't I just say that? Yeah, okay.
You did.
Blah, blah, blah. Not really. If one assumes that when the meteorite strikes the outer covering of the moon, this plays the role of a buffer, and the foreign body finds itself up against an impenetrable spherical barrier, only slightly denting the 20-mile layer of armor plating. The explosion flings bits of its coating far and wide. Bearing in mind that the moon's defense coating is, according to our calculations, 2.5 miles thick, one sees that this is approximately the maximum depth of the craters. Think about it. All right, here we go. We end up with a spaceship come to grief. Okay? And this is like, keep in mind, I'm 12 years old. I'm 12 years old, and I stumble across this, and I'm like, wait, what? I wanted to go in and tell this to all my teachers, and I was like, you know what? I'm already a troublemaker. I'm not trying to really mess with their job and really try and, like, push the limits like that and end up, like, in stupid classes because I don't want to follow what I'm being told. I was, like, kind of a zombie back in the day. I just wanted to do what I was told to a sense. I'm still going to be myself.
Go back and question some.
Yeah. I was still going to be myself and be a goofball and get in trouble and this and that, but it was a whole nother sense, not like speaking my mind on what I'm being taught and this and that. I didn't really care about what I was being taught. So when I read this, it was interesting, but We had the moon was covered 3 years ago, so I was like, I'm not talking about the moon. Like nobody's talking about the moon in any of my classes, so I'm not bringing this up. And it's a little bit crazy, so I'm not trying to look crazy. You know what I'm saying? I already look crazy enough as it is. All right, a spaceship come to grief. Now let us consider the chemical peculiarities of the lunar rock. Upon analysis, American scientists have found chromium, titanium, and zirconium in it. These are all metals with refractory, mechanically strong, and anti-corrosive properties. A combination of them all would have inevitable resistance to heat and the ability to stand up to means of aggression, and could be used on Earth for linings for electrical furnaces. If a material had to be devised to protect a giant artificial satellite from the unfavorable effects of temperature, from cosmic radiation and meteorite bombardment, the experts would probably have hit on precisely these metals. In that case, it is not clear why lunar rock is such an extraordinarily poor heat conductor, a factor which so amazed the astronauts. There's a question mark. I'm messing me up. Wasn't that what the designers of the Super Sputnik of the Earth were after? From the engineer's point of view, this spaceship of ages long past, which we call the moon, is superbly constructed. There may be a good reason for its extreme longevity. It is even possible that it predates our own planet. At any rate, some pieces of lunar rock have proved older than the oldest on Earth. Although it is true, this applies to the age of the materials and not of the structure for which they were used. And from the number of craters on its surface, the moon itself is no chicken. It is, of course, difficult to say when it began to shine in the sky above the Earth, but on the basis of some preliminary estimates, one might hazard a guess that it was around 2,000 million years ago. All right, before I continue real quick on, we start off at, we continue back at We Do Not. Right, have you ever seen Hitchhiker's Guide to a Galaxy, or you know about Hitchhiker's Guide to a Galaxy?
Yeah, very long ago.
All right, they create planets in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. They have the ability to create planets, and they do it, right? As I'm reading this, my mind is thinking, I don't know why, but my mind is thinking about a spaceship literally that comes, creates a planet, starts orbiting around that planet, creates tides, creates life, creates cycles, creates, you know what I'm saying? And like, well, you know, the moon, we rely on the moon in so many different ways for so many different things. Gives us light at night, you know what I'm saying? For a lot of times of the year, gives us light at night. Like, the moon came here and created the Earth. And then the people who were inhabiting the moon, creating the Earth, some stayed, a lot abandoned, and came to Earth. And there's still some in the moon, living in the moon and controlling a lot of the aspects of the upper echelons. We talk about the puppets, Obama's puppet and political leaders' puppets. I'm talking about that puppet master. Yeah. Okay, I'm talking about like the top, like literally the pointy top. You touching the pointy top of the pyramid. You know what I'm saying? Those guys, okay, are still in the moon, right? But they came here a long time ago, built the Earth, and set the moon. The moon was designed so that when you build a planet, you put enough water on there and this and that, you can start orbiting this planet in a certain fashion, and the planet will start to thrive and life will grow, and you can create a whole civilization, slave race if you want. You know what I'm saying? Think about the Anunnaki and all that. You know, you think about Nibiru. Could the moon actually be Nibiru? We think Nibiru is this giant planet and this and that. What if Nibiru is actually the moon? Is sitting up in front of us almost every night? There's a lot of crazy things to think about.
That will be
when it comes to the moon. But
that's a crazy thought right there.
But the main way that I was thinking of, the best analogy to put it is, think about when a new housing development is being built. Think about space as just empty space, like empty land on Earth, right? Okay. Space in space, the universe space, right? All right. When a new housing development's being built, they come in, they clear out the space around it, they make a space for it, right? They make a orbit for it, an orbit around the sun, and what do? They start building houses there. But what do they also have there? The little trailer. The little trailer is a construction trailer that's building all those houses and putting all those houses together. You know what I'm saying? And then when that neighborhood is finally finished, that construction trailer is still there for a few days. And that construction trailer a couple weeks until like the actual, like the sidewalks and lawns and shit are done. But you got a neighborhood there, you know? But look at that construction trailer, or even like a rental office, or a property management company that is a property management company that's building their office at this rental complex, or it's like a senior living development. Perfect. You know what I'm saying? You build the place and then you run it. You know what I'm saying? And it needs the office. It can't run without the office, and the
True.
office is the moon. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. My mind's going off on all these different tangents. But it's like they're coming in, they build us, they watch over us, this and that. But we're like wondering, what's the moon? What's this thing? And they can't tell us, well, that was actually the spaceship we showed up in had all of our materials. The inside of it was filled with all of our materials to create your planet and harvest all the things we needed from all the other planets in the solar system to create your planet.
They could tell us, but that's when you would get people on their front lawn going, "You're bullshit, blue beam."
All right. So, continuing on, we do not, of course, imagine that the moon is still inhabited, and probably many of its, well, I do, I guess, huh? And probably many of its automatic devices have stopped working, too. The stabilizers have ceased functioning, and the poles have shifted. Even though the moon keeps that same side turned towards us, for some time it has been unsteady on its own axis, on occasion showing us part of its reverse side, which were once invisible to observers on the Earth. For example, the Selenites themselves, if they made expeditions here. Time has taken its toll. Both body and rigging have disintegrated to some extent. Some seams on the inner shell evidently diverge. We assume that the long, up to 940 miles, chains of small craters that formerly ascribed to volcanic activity were brought about by eruptions of gas through cracks appearing in the armor plating as a result of accidents. No doubt, one of the most splendid features of the lunarscape, a straight wall nearly 500 yards high and over 60 miles long, formed as a result of one of the armor plates bending under the impact of celestial torpedoes and raising one of its straight, even wedges. That's where my ears perked up and never went back down when I heard about that straight wall. It's like, that's not natural. No. I'm sorry, but that's not natural. If that's supposed to be a naturally formed celestial body, that's not natural. 500 meters high, 500 yards high, and 60 miles long wall, straight line on the moon? Nah, that's not natural.
Put that there.
Something put in that, or that's the literally the moon is like a shell, or the moon has an outer casing, and the outer casing, like, think about two metal outer casings, like one like got dented in or something, or pressure from one side popped the one side up a little bit, so you got that little, you know what I'm saying? It's not, that's something to do with its shell or some shit. Nothing built that fucking wall there. That's something to do with its actual structure, and it tells us that it's not a natural structure, that there's actual seams. If we dug up all the moon dirt, that would be crazy. What if we went to the moon and literally excavated all of the moon rocks and moon dirt and got it as bare as we could, you know, and see what's underneath of everything?
What do you think's underneath?
I think we're actually going to end up doing that one day, and the moon's going to crumble and fall apart because we're going to think it's a spaceship or something like that, and we're going to find out that the moon is a lot like an egg, where once you crack one part of it, a lot of it starts to crumble and break and fall, and the moon's actually, like, if you've ever seen the movie The Time Machine,
yes,
the moon's like falling apart in that because they were trying to colonize the moon. I think that's a very realistic possibility. All right, so moving on. I don't know, I got a ghost in the house or something here in the studio.
The truth is out there.
All right. Let's see. So we talked about the straight wall. The moon's population presumably took the necessary steps to remedy the effects of meteorite bombardment. For example, patching up rents in the outer shield covering the inner shell. For such purposes, a substance from the lunar core was probably used, a kind of cement being made from it. After processing this would be piped to the surface sites where it was required. Not long ago, astronomers discovered variations in the gravitational fields near the large seas. We believe the reason to be this. The moon's dry seas are in fact areas from which the protective coating was torn from the armor cladding. To make good the damage to these vast tracts, the installation producing the repair substances would have had to be brought immediately beneath the site so that it could flood the area with this cement. The resulting flat stretches are what look like seas to the terrestrial observer. The stocks of materials and machinery for doing this are no doubt still where they were, and are sufficiently massive to give rise to these gravitational anomalies. What is the moon today? Is it a colossal necropolis, a city of the dead, where some form of life became extinct? Is it a kind of cosmic Flying Dutchman, a craft abandoned by its crew and controlled automatically? We do not know, and we shall not try to guess. Waiting for the evidence. We have put forward in this article only a few of the reasons. Unfortunately, the evidence is so far only circumstantial for a hypothesis which at first glance may appear to be crazy. A similar crazy idea was put forward in 1959 by Professor Iosif Shklovsky, an eminent scientist, in relation to the moons circling around Mars. After carefully weighing up the evidence, he concludes that they are both hollow and therefore artificial satellites. We feel that the questions we have raised in connection with our moon provide sufficient food for serious thought on the matter. The result may be the illumination of our many lunar riddles. Now, of course, we have to wait for direct evidence to support our idea or refute it. Probably there will not be long to wait. Also, thinking about that, I'm thinking about, I saw something looking into all of this about Saturn's moons. And Saturn's moons may actually have atmospheres somewhat like Earth's atmosphere.
Really?
And like oxygen rich and all of this, right? So, and we haven't visited Saturn's moons at all. We haven't even sent probes onto Saturn's moons. Part of me thinks when I hear about, thinking about all of this, and this is crazy, right? And that could be true. I look at the what do you call it? I look at the moon as kind of a giant repeater or a giant transmitter. If this is true, then I think that's what it is a giant amplifier for the signal coming from Saturn. And if there's a signal coming from Saturn, there's really, and like think about all the Saturn symbology that is in our culture. You know, how many things got rings around them, you know what I'm saying?
This is true.
Or how many logos and stuff
It's
got rings
something
around
I never
them.
really thought about. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, you can find a lot of Saturn stuff online. You can find a lot of, and it's tied to Illuminati and Satan and Saturn, think about it. But you think about the Mars moons, right? And if they have the possibility, if they have, like, life-bearing atmospheres, who's to say that there's not actually civilizations on Saturn's moons that are actually controlling the transmissions that are going out from Saturn and they're living. There's civilizations that are living and like they're controlling us and they're projecting that reality like they live, but they're on Saturn. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. And like that gives you a whole new idea or a whole new thought of where UFOs come from. It gives you a whole new thought on the shadow space program and how come it's so shadowy and so secretive that like there's a shadow space program, but nobody really knows anything about it. And it's like
true.
And I'm not talking about Area 51. I'm talking about like deeper, crazier. Like the Area 51 is not shadow government, if you ask me. Shadow government, that's kind of the scapegoat. Where if everybody talks about shadow government, you're automatically directed to think about Area 51 and go no further than thinking about what kind of crazy stuff could go on at Area 51. Don't even think about off this planet, what we got going on off this planet, or what a shadow space program could be doing off this planet, or
that's a very
you know what I'm saying,
point.
with time travel and this and that. You know what I'm saying? Divert attention to Area 51.
Because, considering they don't want anyone to know about Area 51, they allow plenty of documentaries about it on every channel all the time.
They allow a lot of people to walk up and get as close as they possibly can without getting shot and taking video and this and that, don't they? You know?
That they do.
I don't know. So I don't know. I kind of want to leave it on that. This has been a great episode, Brian. We kept it under an hour. I'm pretty happy about that. Or did we?
No.
No, we're a little bit over. Oh, well, what are you going to do? All right, well, this has been a great show, dude. This has been a fucking awesome show. My brain hurts. Not as bad as usual, probably because it's 420 and I've had some medicine to take care of the hurting. But, yeah, it's been an amazing show, Brian. So I guess we need to tell everybody to check out Brainstorming. Make sure you check out Brainstorming every week, our new political / current events / the world is going to hell in a handbasket / shitstorm show.
Shitstorm.
So
the shit show.
Yeah, let your brain evolve on that
show.
Let your brain evolve on that show, and then when you come to this show, 3NN, nothing is impossible. Know that nothing is impossible. That's what it is. Know that nothing is impossible. And I don't want to hear none of your shit. Like, I can't turn my skin blue right now, blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe you are turning your skin blue right now, and the moon matrix is projecting the same old color right onto you at all times. So you're turning your shit blue, you're turning your shit purple, you're turning your shit with all these different colors. But the moon matrix is projecting that shit on you. Because think about your atoms. And the atoms that make up your body and how they're 99% hollow. And how you think about how that going up on a larger scale, how all of it is kind of a hologram that you're seeing, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, well, then that hologram may be able to be manipulated. We might not think it's possible now, but in 200 years, with our technological know-how and our advancements, that might just be like, the hologram can be manipulated. It's I don't understand why anybody ever got plastic surgery back in the day, because now you manipulate your hologram. It's your hologram, you know what I'm saying? It's programming. You walk into this thing, it reprograms you a little bit, and your hologram has changed, you know? Bled out. Your DNA is literally just the program, the code for your hologram. So when your DNA changes...
The future of plastic surgery, manipulating holograms.
Wow, you heard it here from Nick Tesla. You heard it here first. All right, everybody check out... did I just do that? Yeah, look. Yeah, look. It makes a little line.
Oh.
That's crazy. All right. Everybody check us out. Where We Lied To, youtube.com/Where We Lied To, facebook.com/3NM Podcast. Also check out Brainstorms Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Check us out on 3NM Podcast Wednesdays at 9 p.m. What else, Brian? Oh, if you need to get a hold of either me or Brian, you can find me at just Google or look up Nick Tesla on Facebook. Make sure you like my Nick Tesla page, the comedian page. That'd be nice. Thank you. And Brian, if you need to get a hold of Brian, you can either email him at brian3nn at hotmail.com or email the show at 3nn at outlook.com or find either one of us on Facebook and message us. Brian McFadden, Nick Tesla. Been a great show. Thank you very much, everybody. We'll see you next week for 3NN28. Don't know what we're bringing you, but I can guarantee it's going to be a blast. I keep looking at this camera that's not there. I'm looking at an empty vase. Well, a vase with flowers in it and then an empty vase next to it. I'm looking at the empty one. All right. So do I look at life as half full or half empty? Or do I look at life as the vase has flowers in it or the vase doesn't? No, in my life, the vase always has flowers in it because it's a sunny day. Every day is a sunny day. You know what grows in sunny days? Flowers. Hey, there's rainy days. You got to have rainy days, but not many. So.
But flowers need the rain also.
Yeah, I guess maybe I get cacti growing on my sunny days, like a desert, because there's not many rainy days to go along with it. And no, I don't cry at night like the desert rains, you know. Anyway. Like the desert missed the rain, and I missed you. Yeah, like the desert missed the rain, and I miss you. Yeah, like the desert missed the rain.
Please share our show with all your friends. Make us famous so I never have to worry about Nick seeking a career as a singer.
Yeah, no, so he doesn't have to fucking work with me anymore, so he doesn't have to deal with my bullshit anymore. I know, I'm on you, Brian. Alright, everybody have a great week. And we'll see you next week, Wednesday, 9 p.m.
Get it! Be there!
Be square, you fucking nerds. Or I guess you're non-nerds. You non-nerd believers. I don't even know what that means. Love yous.